Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Motherhood on the Move with yours truly, Brittany Nettles. We're in the office today and we are getting shit done. We are the GSD committee, and I am recording a few episodes because I have a lot of ideas, and I've had a few people write in saying they wanted to see certain episodes. So while I have the time, while I'm in the mindset, and while I'm actually put together and not in athleisure or have mom hair or a hat on my head, I'm going to record a few episodes and let's hang out for a little while. This week, I wanted to do an episode on the market and share a few tips on crafting an offer that stands out in a very competitive real estate market, and share a few words of encouragement because I've recently represented a few buyers who have submitted really compelling and competitive offers but still lost out. And I want to remind people that it does happen, and most importantly, pass along a few words of encouragement. So, first things first, we represent both buyers and sellers. So, we have a unique scope of insight because we understand what sellers look for, how sellers think, and we also understand how buyers think and how to optimize their offer to make it truly appeal and stand out from 3 or 4 other offers that might be in hand. We live in the suburbs, so I'm in Yardley, Bucks County. We also sell in Montgomery County, we sell in Philly County, we sell in Delaware County, and we sell over in New Jersey. All of the counties are wildly different. I'd say Delco, Montco, Bucksco are equally as competitive, zip code depending. Philly is a little less competitive. Still, things are selling, just in a little bit more stable, neutral market. I'd say there's a little bit more inventory down there, giving buyers a little bit more options. So buyers are a little bit more selective. Whereas in Bucks County, Montgomery County, Delaware County, and I can't comment on Jersey. Shout out to Jen Locke on my team. She is our New Jersey agent and extraordinaire. Maybe I'll have her on for a podcast episode on crafting a competitive offer in the New Jersey market. But I hear from the grapevine that it is equally as competitive over there. So maybe I'll apply that to my Delaware, Montco, Bucksco chat. But nonetheless, I see that inventory is very tight in the 3 counties that I mentioned, excluding Philly County. And therefore, these properties are competitive when they're priced right, when they have curb appeal, when they have the 4 bedrooms with 2+ car garage with a backyard, a minimum of a 1/4 acre, and it's in habitable move-in turnkey condition. Buyers want it and they will pay top dollar for it. And what I'm seeing is our buyers are coming in, they are waiving contingencies, they are coming in with really strong buyers' financials, they are coming in with local lender approvals, they are closing quickly, they are offering to pay transfer tax, they are doing all the right things only to come up short. So I'm going to share a few things that you can do to draft a very competitive and compelling offer. So number 1, I would walk through the property with you most of the time. 95% of the time I am there, unless I have to be home with my son Teddy, or there's a showing agent because I'm already out on showings and it's time sensitive and we need to get you in, or there's an open house that you just happen to pop into. That happens so much more frequently than you think. So I'll walk through the property with you generally, and I'll evaluate it with you. I'm not a home inspector, but I've seen enough homes to help you decide what is in good condition, what is on its way out. Of course, I'll always look at my evaluation of things and evaluate in conjunction with the seller's property disclosure, which is an itemized fact sheet about the house. What age is the roof? How old is the furnace? When was the water heater last replaced? Are there any existing insurance claims on the property? What are the systems like? Do you have on-site septic or well? Is it public? Is it not? There are a few things that we're going to take into consideration to decide, is this house up to snuff? Now, there are some homes, I love to call them the grandma homes, that are impeccable. That generation, the boomers, I know we give them a lot of flack, but they took care of their homes impeccably, and they have documents on documents dating back to the 90s on maintenance, and I love that for my clients. So, when we walk into these houses that are a little bit older but only need some cosmetic improvements, I say slam dunk, home run. Typically, the roof is either newish or has been maintained in the last few years. The mechanicals are all current, have been serviced. I love the way that everything looks. A home like that, I walk in with confidence, and I typically suggest, barring my clients' comfort levels, I will never encourage you to do anything that you're not comfortable with, but I would encourage you to waive that home inspection. That is probably the more critical things that sellers look for in this market because it's unfortunate, but it's typically how easy are we making it for them? And inspections are one of the bigger hurdles aside from, price and maybe mortgage, which I'll get to. The inspection is the most sensitive thing because sellers never know what's going to come up. There's always something that comes up on a home property inspection, even if it's brand new construction. There's always something that the home inspector will flag. And it's up to you to decide what's important to you. But if you walk in that house and you say, Britt, I'm confident, let's waive that home inspection, let's do it. Alternatively, you can also walk in and say, I'm willing to perform inspections for information only. I will accept the property as is, of course, retaining your right to terminate. And I'll walk you through that nuance. But if buyers are not entirely comfortable waiving their home inspection, then they can just perform for information only. They can also offer to cover the first $5,000 of repairs that the inspector flagged. So that is another thing that you can do. If you're not totally comfortable just taking it as is, and again, you still retain your right to terminate, so we can review that home inspection report and review it together in full, and I'll tell you what's typical and what's not, or what we might want to get a second opinion on from a specialist, so on and so forth. And if you're not comfortable doing that, again, then we can offer to cover the first $5,000. I'll use that as an example. $5,000 worth of inspection repairs. So, how do you know how much a repair cost? Typically, our home inspector will include some kind of range for the cost to repair or cure. So, we'll go over our inspection report, we'll tally everything up, we will itemize everything together, and we'll decide if we want to move forward because repairs came in under that threshold, or maybe because a lot of them seem innocuous enough or common small potatoes enough that you're not even willing to, push the seller's button. So there are a few creative levers and pulleys that we can do aside from just completely waiving it outright. The next thing you can do is pricing, and I probably should have started there, but inspection is always the big one. The price, of course. Let's say there are multiple offers in hand. I'm always going to call the agent and I'm always going to poke them for some information. I'm going to ask, do you have any offers in hand? How are they looking? Do you have offers that are cash? Are they waiving contingencies? Some agents are steel traps and they will not reveal any information. More power to them. However, most agents are cooperative. They don't want to waste people's time and they want to generate the strongest, most compelling offer for their seller. So it does behoove them to share what they have in hand because it's more likely that a buyer is going to respond and get competitive and do what they can to outpace and outbid that other offer. So I'll always gather that information. Now back to price. If we are considering price, I'm always going to go back and I'm going to run comps. I'm going to see what has, and by comps I mean comparables, what has recently sold in the neighborhood that is of similar size, scale, and quality. And I'm going to go back, come up with a strategy and say, hey, I think we're going to land between, X and Y price. And I always ask the question, what does this home mean to you? How much are you willing to pay? I'm going to take that number into consideration and I'm going to look at it with comps. And at the end of the day, I recommend, especially if you love the home, give it your 100%, shoot your shot, and if it doesn't work out, then it's not meant to be. I hate to get all hippy-dippy university about it, but I can guarantee you're going to find something of equal or better than value if we do not land this plane the first time around. Anyway, I always ask my clients, what does this house mean to you? Because I'm going to take that number and I'm going to go back and look at my comps and come up with an overall strategy. And I'm going to suggest all terms, but let's work on price and focus on price now. If we offer full price, great. But if there's also 4 other offers on the table, it's likely that people are offering over list price. Now, some clients ask me, hey, is there any way that we can get an idea of what people are paying? Absolutely. I'll try to probe the agent and take the temperature. But if I can't get anything out of them, because again, realtor ethics, we want to treat everyone fairly, then I'm going to recommend going in at a number that feels competitive and comfortable to you. And we're going to throw in an escalation clause. Now, what's an escalation clause? It is a clause that only gets enacted if there are other competing offers, meaning if we go in at $700,000, list price maybe let's say is $695. We throw them a bone and go in at 700 and get them an extra $5,000 out of the gate. Maybe we think after looking at comps and running numbers with lenders, we feel most comfortable escalating up to 725. Now, if there's another set of offers in hand, maybe the second highest is 715, then we're going to automatically escalate to 716 because we have an escalation clause that gets triggered and we escalate in increments of $1,000. Now, clients also ask, how do I know that they're not smoke and mirrors? Simply put, the escalation clause does have special language in there that states the seller must show us proof of competing offer. So I will get a copy of the redacted offer that shows a $715,000 sales price that ultimately bumped us up to 716. So everybody is not only compliant, but, resting assured that they didn't just get bamboozled. On the topic of money, the next thing that we can probably do is consider an appraisal gap. If we're not planning to go in paying cash, which, to be completely transparent, most buyers in this market, even if they are coming up as cash, they're probably not paying cash unless they totally are. But what buyers are likely doing is waiving their mortgage contingency entirely. So if you are not the type that either has a trust fund or generational wealth, or maybe you've just been, out here grinding for so many years and you do have that much cash stashed in the bank, that's awesome. Love that for you. However, if you don't, but you feel very confident about your mortgage profile and your pre-approval, and most importantly, the lender that you're working with, and maybe they've already underwritten your file in advance and now they're just waiting for the property to match to your profile, maybe we want to go ahead and consider waiving our mortgage contingency. So that way, to the seller, we are telling them we are not contingent on financing. You're still going to get a loan, but it means that you're not contingent on financing. So what does that look like? It means that we are going to proceed with a mortgage. We're going to go through underwriting. We're still going to obtain an appraisal. However, we are not counting on the property appraising at contract price. So using the 716 figure, 9 times out of 10, appraisal is a non-issue. It's likely that that property is going to appraise at 716. People are out here going buck wild as far as escalation clauses go and going over list price for the right homes. However, they're still within reason and most appraisers are still agreeing with value. In the event that they do not agree with value, maybe the property appraises at 700. What that simply means is that you're on the hook to bring the 16 grand difference, because again, we're under agreement at 716. You are going to bring that $16,000 to settlement, and that's just going to be a part of your closing costs. Now, before we go ahead and waive our right to a mortgage, and before we go ahead and agree to cover any appraisal gap, we're going to simply make sure that we have that additional cash handy, because there's a chance that you might not have to do that at all and your closing costs remain what you're originally quoted. However, if there is an appraisal gap and you have to bring that additional cash to closing to keep the seller whole, then we're just going to make sure that we have that cash handy, ready, already in the bank or available to liquidate. Or maybe there's a gift that you're getting, or maybe you're taking out, an additional HELOC, whatever it might be. We just want to know that source where we're getting it from in case we need to bring it to closing. Another caveat is it doesn't always mean that you're just bringing additional cash unless you want to. You can always go back to the lender and say, hey, I want to put a little less down so I can bring this additional cash to closing and in turn free it up. So if you were putting 20% down, maybe you want to put 18% down. So that way you can manipulate the mortgage numbers a little bit and bring that additional cash to close that you would have put down if you were just putting flat out 20%. So we can get a little creative. It doesn't always mean that you're automatically on the hook to bring that money. You are, but there are other ways to get creative and minimize the overall financial burden and strain that you might be exposed to if you do that. But I always tell my clients, don't strain yourself. Do what you're truly most comfortable with, because the right home, you'll do whatever you're comfortable with and you'll do whatever you can. I never want to see my clients upset or burdened or strained or financially in a bind. So I think that also covers my appraisal gap suggestion. If you are, let's say, you're not planning to waive your mortgage contingency, we don't have to do that. In fact, a lot of people don't, but some people do. I ran into that this week quite a bit. Let's say you're retaining your right to a mortgage, meaning I still want to get a mortgage. And if I can't, then I'm not going to lose my deposit. And another thing that the mortgage contingency does is insulate you from losing your deposit if you lose your job. So that's another bit of language that is under the mortgage contingency. If you lost your job a few days after going under agreement, or even one day before closing, which would be really unfortunate, you can walk away from the sale, get your deposit back. It's at no fault to you. Nonetheless, if we elect our mortgage contingency, we can still say, hey, seller, I'm getting a mortgage contingency, but this is not contingent upon appraisal. So what that means is you'll still get your mortgage and you can have your cake, and you're still telling the seller, I will cover that appraisal gap that might arise. So if we're under agreement at the 716 and the property appraises at 700, you're still agreeing to bring that 16 grand to settlement. Or you can say, I'm willing to cover up to 50 grand of the appraisal gap. That's right. I seen that this week, and I seen 100 grand worth of appraisal gap. That is what my clients offered to cover, which was between list price and contract price. So we agreed to cover and keep the seller whole no matter what the property appraised at, because my clients had that cash available and that's what the home meant to them. So we can get pretty creative around the appraisal side of things. That's another lever that the sellers want to see. And then closing timeline. We have lenders that can close as early as 2 weeks. Movement mortgage is really awesome. Cross country mortgage is really awesome. We have bona fide lenders that we've worked with who are really wonderful humans that we trust like family, and we know that you can too. And they're hella competitive and they're locally recognized and trusted. And that's really important too. The lender that you work with matters, because sellers place less confidence in companies like Bank of America or TD Bank or Wells Fargo, although Wells Fargo isn't even generating mortgages anymore, because they have less cred. There's not a human on the other side. You're just a number in their queue, and that's not what we want. We want someone who is available, who gives a damn, who wants to get this contract to close. So we can work on a shorter timeline if that works for the sellers, or we can work with the standard 30 to 45 day or whatever that might be. On the topic of timeline, some seller might, and this is totally seller dependent, but some sellers may need a lease back. So we agree to close in 30 days and lease back to them for 2 weeks. I would always tell my clients to give it to them for free, because that's pretty much just one free thing that you can do to make the sellers more comfortable. And you don't make your first mortgage payment until 2 months after you close. So if you close October 1, you're not making your first mortgage payment until October, November, December 1, which is pretty cool. So you're not funding and supporting their lease there or their time in the house there, because you technically don't have anything to pay for during that time, and they're agreeing to pay utilities until they move out. So that's just another creative avenue. The last few things that you can do are covering transfer tax. So in the suburbs, Bucksco, Delco, Montco, there's 2% transfer tax. You as a buyer are already covering that 1%, but you can also offer to cover the seller's half, so an additional 1%, and bring the whole 2% to closing. That's another thing that we can do to just guarantee the seller some more cash without touching sales price maybe. You can offer to cover buyer's agent fees. So I discussed in our Buyer 101 episode how to buy a house. I'm always going to tell you in advance if the seller is not paying my fees, and there are rare times where the seller is not paying my fees, and we'll come up with some kind of creative way to fund that. However, if you decide, hey, I want to relieve the seller of as much financial burden as I can and more importantly, get the house, then I'm going to recommend why don't you tack on my fee to your closing costs, absorb that, and that's just less money that the seller has to dish out without, again, bumping up the sales price too much. So there are some creative things that I've recommended to clients, and still some clients do all of these things and they still come up short, which is the most demoralizing, depressing side of this market because I feel it too. Me, I'm a Cancer, I'm a water sign. I am so empathetic to my clients, and I truly believe that is my superpower. However, it sucks when I'm also feeling what they're feeling because I'm feeling like I also failed them, which I know is not true. We are always out here giving it our 110%, and sometimes that still isn't enough. So, my encouragement to buyers in this market, sellers, have a blast. Just don't take too much advantage, right? The market is still realistic. Don't think that you can go buck wild out here. My strategy for my sellers is price it right and you'll see results. I did do a seller episode if you want to go back and listen. But as buyers, hang in there. Plan to take a few swings before you hit a home run. I think if you enter the market with that kind of mindset, that is going to make you invincible. And that is going to manage your expectations, keep you a little detached from the home. I want you to feel attached to the home because I want you to feel enthusiastic enough to craft a really competitive offer. However, try to be as detached from the outcome as you can, especially in multiple bid scenarios. You will always land the plane. You will always, always, always land the plane, but it might take you a little while to do so. I love all of the metaphors out there, metaphors on metaphors, but let it be a reminder that you are not alone. You are showing up as aggressively as you can, and that will be enough. It may not be enough now, but that will be enough. And 10 times out of 10, my clients are always thrilled with the outcome. So have some patience. Let's chat. Be communicative. My joke is that I'm full-time realtor, part-time therapist, and that is not untrue. And I'm not dissing any of the therapists out there. You guys put in so much work and have so much more cred and certifications and degrees. So not minimizing that, but we do play therapists. Like I'm a pseudo therapist and I spend a lot of time encouraging people, dissecting feelings, going through some really heavy life events. This is the most financially involved decision of your life. It is emotional. You are uprooting family. I had a client this week who's 2.5 weeks out from giving birth. She has a scheduled cesarean and she is riding that horse. She is running towards the home that she wants. It's like an extreme case of nesting, and I support it. But we also decided after 2 failed offers, we came in second each time, but second doesn't win, which is the most devastating piece of my job and, devastating piece for them. They decided to get off the horse and they decided to take a break and revisit, 30 days from now, whenever they're truly settled with their new kiddo. They're welcoming a third into this world. Congrats to them. But you see it all. And I support my clients every single step of the way. I want to answer all of your questions. I want to get on the phone. I want to talk through things because I just want to be available. I know that this market is tough, but you're tougher and you are going to see it through. We are going to see it through. I say sometimes it's a marathon, sometimes it's a sprint. Great thing I'm a runner because I'm willing to do it all with you. So that's all I've got. They're all my cheesy puns. They're all my cheesy isms and metaphors, and I hope that you've enjoyed them. And if you're a buyer in this market, I see you. I feel you. I walk in lockstep with you. You will find the house that you're looking for. You will be thrilled about it. Just hang in there, be patient, and work with a good realtor who can coach you through all the things. Have a great week.